If upon
if anyone wants to see this is on the Israel advocacy movement, did you just do my tweets and replies on Twitter? So that's the wrong one. I need to go to profile, tweets and replies.
I mean, did you hear what Nick Fuente was saying?
Nick Fuentes is a hardcore anti-Semite. What did he say?
He was saying basically, the business practices are inspired by Judaism because of like how the Gentile is treated.
The Gentiles to be subjugated.
So on the first column of the meme that everyone's talking about, and for the benefit of the camera, this is the meme we're all talking about.
It's a striking image on the face of it.
And so just the first column, so all these reds, these people I could look at, there's no evidence that they're Jewish. Sweeney, Barrios, Skipper, McLeod, Havens, Riley, Forsell, Coles, Pruitt, William Jones, Catmull, Griffin, Coleman, Smith. Not very Jewish names. And like, so
it sounds more English than the England football team.
And so the reason I'm saying that, and you can do that to any of the columns, a neo-Nazi put together a meme, showed it to Kanye, and with all due respect, Kanye's not that smart. Kanye's like, okay, I've now got the truth. This supports my anti-Semitic belief that all these companies are run by evil Jews. Look at all these. Look at this evil Jew Sweeney. Look at this evil Jew McLeod. Look at this evil Jew Smith.
But just like you say, a lot of names that we assume are Jewish are German.
Yeah.
A lot of names that sound English could be Jewish.
So there were people on that list who had names that didn't sound Jewish.
Yeah.
And you looked into the background and they were Jewish. So I went and I looked at them and tried to find any evidence that they were Jewish. And anyone can do the exact same exercise. Yeah. And I encourage, if you're looking at that meme, do your own fact checking because there's so much nonsense on the internet.
I think if you're going to form an opinion on this topic, you have to do that research. So if it
one final thing, do not take your proofs from Kanye West. Basically, if Kanye's shown you a meme, you should certainly be fact checking it.
I think that's fair.
That's it. But so going back to what Nick Fuente was saying about, Jewish being able to charge interest to. Non-Jews and not.
That's truthful.
But
that's not unethical.
Okay, but what he was saying is that inspires the business practices of Jewish executives in the business in the music industry. I know it's far-fetched, but again, I'm putting it to you because I feel like we have to discuss these things. People need to hear about.
You're a Muslim.
Yeah.
It says, "Do not take the Jews and Christians as your friends." Does that inspire you to treat non-Muslims in a really negative way when you're living in their lands? No, of course not. So anybody can take a line from a religion and twist it. So basically the philosophy behind the charging interest, not charging interest, is if I know somebody and they're bound by my religious code, so I know they're religiously obligated to repay me under threat from heaven, like I'm threatened, my world to come is threatened if I don't repay this loan, I'm going to pay this back. If I'm living amongst, which is when these laws were designed, if I'm living amongst pagans who sacrifice their children, I've got no assurance that if I give them this money, it's going to come back to me. Therefore, I will loan that out, but I will say you have to pay back interest, and that covers the risk. The interest model is what created the incredible societies that we live in because it enabled people to loan money to other people and factor in the risk, mitigate the risk of losing that money through defaulting, through theft and everything else. And so interest is not evil, in my opinion. But to not charge someone interest is a very noble and kind thing to do, but you need some sort of protection. And so from a religious philosophical position, if someone has a fear of heaven, from the Jewish understanding, and we know we're bound by the same code, I'm going to be more trusting. Similarly, if I see someone as family, I'm probably going to be more trusting of them than if a stranger comes up and asks for money. And so that's it. If you want to say that cultivates the likelihood that Jews will exploit non-Jews, I would strongly disagree with that. And I think the reality is the opposite. Jews give disproportionately more money than any other people. We're commanded to give 10 to 20% of our money away, like charitable every year of what we earn. And on top of that, the biggest philanthropists in the world, almost all of them are Jewish. And you could say that's because they're affluent.
I think some of them are Zoroastrians as well.
Really? That's cool. I didn't know that. I like learning things. That's really cool.
No, but this is precisely sort of like, the argument that is being made, And I mean, you broke it down here as to why that happens. But when you have someone like Nick Fuente who knows about this stuff, and then
Nick Fuentes doesn't know about this stuff. That's my point.
No. He knows. I mean, he knows.
Nick Fuentes goes on Google, finds an anti-Semitic website, Nazi website, where they quote some dodgy lines from the Talmud. Doesn't read the Talmud. And just quotes what it says on these dodgy websites. Yeah. It's like Kanye West is a student of Nick Fuentes. Yeah. So like, he's not. This is not a scholar of Judaism.
Yeah. But it's good that you broke this down, because this is something that you may start to hear quite often, because it's now in the public's perception.
You mean that Kanye West is mainstreaming anti-Semitism? Absolutely.
No,
Kanye
I mean that
mainstreaming anti-Semitism.
About possible reasons why certain business practices are practiced in the way they are practiced.
Who's saying that other than Nick Fuentes?
I mean, I've heard it before. It's not the first time I've heard this,
So you think, you think that there's a mainstream position, like a common belief, that Jews have bad business practices because of their religion?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There is a belief that Jewish business people are very good in exploiting populations under the guise of...
Is this something you hear a lot?
I mean, we've been hearing this for the last 2,000 years in Europe in particular.
No, but I'm talking about you particularly. Do you hear this?
I mean, whenever, not in my personal life, but when I'm online, when I hear people who do criticize Jewish people.
That's what I'm asking about, like real life. Not what like I can go on the internet and I can find people who believe they are their animal spirit is a unicorn. It doesn't mean it's a common belief. I'm asking, do you experience these beliefs?
It's a held belief, right?
I speak to lots of people, and very few people make the association of the Jewish religion.
George Soros and all these guys.
No, there's anti-Semitic conspiracy, but very few people bring it back to the religion.
You mean like the whole Rothschild?
It's bringing it back to the religion. So the religion, it comes from Christian Europe, where Christians would say these verses in the Talmud are problematic. So but it's not a mainstream. It's not a new thing, but it's not a mainstream thing. I never.
What you are saying is that there are certain religious principles that would dictate that Jews may treat each other differently in business from how they would treat non-Jews.
No. Okay. It's one thing, one literal interest. That's the only thing.
Okay.
And every religion has discriminatory laws in it, which discriminate between the practice of that faith and the people outside of it. I could go to Islam and the kuffar, I go to Christianity and the infidels. It's literally all religions do this.
That's kind of why I wash my hands of religion.
That's I can completely understand that position. Religions tend not to be universal. I mean, they're often imperialist and they want to absorb everyone into them, but they usually single out their people to have a particular code of laws.
Incentives for joining, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but so recently, I don't know who it is. This is some Hollywood don, I think of Jewish ancestry, and he was saying this as well. He was saying that we have to have these conversations, and we have to have these conversations openly. And because of the woke brigade and the liberalism, I feel like there is a considerable amount of people who feel like, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, so Joseph, do not attack me personally, because I understand, honestly, I was saying this to Cyrus earlier, I do understand where the fear comes from. It's a justified fear that a lot of Jewish people have. For example, I told him the story, I was invited to a get-together of a friend of mine. She's a curator. And there was two Jewish friends of mine who were their acquaintances. And they were talking about their experiences as Jewish people in the UK and the things they experience in the art world. And there was one friend of mine actually who was campaigning against what were anti, when the whole what was the opposite of the woke situation? Alt-right. Yeah. When the alt-right thing, the alt-right movement was gaining steam. There was loads of these people who were also involved in the art world, and someone like Shia LaBeouf, and do you remember there was this whole thing around him Oh, right.
It's not my area though.
Okay, yeah, but there was a whole, like, you know, like sort of like 4chan, like, esque, you know, groups of people online again was trying to, like, you know, push really the boundaries as to how to, you know, define the whole situation, because he was politically standing against Trump and also standing against the anti-Semitism. So, and there was particular artists in the art world who were really, really pushing boundaries. And I remember being there with them, and they were talking about their experiences. And you know, I was like, wow, this is very familiar. I've heard this before. You know, it really reminded me of the conversations that I would have with a black person about our experiences, you know, being in the Western world. So I was moved by that, you know, that there is like this very deep trauma that exists amongst the Jewish people, again, for obvious reasons. It's not something they just make up. So I am of the understanding why
the fear of the propagation of narratives begin to smell like things that have happened in the past.
So that is that perhaps the reason why there is this protectionist.
But I don't think there is this protection. So there's no issue with saying that, like, Jews have received more Nobel Peace Prizes, more Nobel Prizes than most other ethnic groups, certainly proportionally to their size. Jews are disproportionately represented as solicitors or as executives in Hollywood or as actors.
Jews control the banks.
But that's different to saying that Jews are disproportionately represented.
Yeah.
Because there you're suggesting there's some sort of collusion where these Jews are controlling.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And
but if you're
those anti-Semitic tropes that were contributed to the Holocaust, as an example.
Yes, correct.
So they looked at banking families like, this is the curse of being a Jew. So in Europe, they would curse the Jews because they were peasants and disgusting and dirty and poor. But they'd simultaneously, out the other side of their mouth, curse the Jews for being so rich. And they'd look at the Rothschilds or the Oppenheimers and they'd pick small families and say, look how wealthy these Jews are.
Yeah.
And they would then look at the Jews in their community and say, look how poor these dirty, disgusting Jews are, send them back to Palestine, is what they literally used to have graffiti in the UK that said Jews back to Palestine. Now they say Jews out of Palestine. It's like, make up your mind, guys. We're poor, we're rich, we're in Palestine, we're out of Palestine. It's just anti-Semitism. And there's nothing wrong with speaking truth. And if it is truthful that there are Jews are disproportionately represented in a field, everyone talks about that. It's not like no one's talking about that. You can literally watch movies where they make jokes about it. It's like.
But you see the correlation between. It's not that when you look at the positions that these Jews have, executive, meaning you have a considerable amount of influence or even a say in a company. Now, I'm saying devil's advocate.
Who do you think is richer, Ari Emanuel or Kanye?
Arya,
the guy, the executive that Kanye's really gunning for.
Yeah.
Who do you think is richer, Kanye or the executive?
I didn't.
No, it's a question. Just because you're saying the power that they wield.
Even purely from the music.
Yeah.
Well, the executives tend to be more wealthier than the artists.
Not true. Kanye was worth more than 4 times.
No. Kanye is an exception. I'm saying the rule is, generally speaking, the executives tend to be in any industry more richer than
I'm not sure that's okay. An executive takes a percentage
Yeah.
of what the talent makes, and so the talent tends to be more richer unless you have someone who's got so many hugely rich people that they make. But it's
I mean,
we're not talking about exploited. Like, we're not talking about someone who's coming from some horrible slum in New York. Who's like, we're talking about one of the richest men in the world as if they're a victim. Like, this is insanity. For me, this is insanity to look at Kanye as being exploited.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like he was. I don't know if he did describe himself. He was. I think he was trying to bring attention to the exploitation of a community as opposed to himself as an individual.
Yeah. Sorry,
I said
So,
but you're saying that it's not exploitation because the talent that
I
makes
don't see capitalism as exploitation. I'm not a communist. If I was a communist, maybe I would. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
Like they sign contracts, they work together, they get rich together.
Yeah, but you see, that's this idea that's like, and Joseph, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is for you to come here and deconstruct this, right? That's why I'm bringing these things up. I'm not pushing back because I believe in these things.
But hold on.
Yeah.
Yes, those individuals get rich together, but in so doing, they also build a profile for a community which glorifies, through the glorification of of crime, violence within the community.
But then the insanity of this is, it makes it sound like you're blaming Jews for whatever problems different communities in America have. And we're literally talking about rap music. So let's we're talking about rap music, we're talking about the black community. So you're basically saying Jews are responsible for the problems that the black community in America faces. I'm not you, but that's what this argument is saying. I don't want
I think there are some people who are framing it that way. I'm saying that, not that they're to blame, but that there is some responsibility to be.
I would say if you want to point the finger at anyone, point it at the guy who's pointing an Uzi at the camera talking about bitches and hoes.
I think that that's a fair point, and I think that person should bear some responsibility. But also the people behind the camera and the people signing the checks.
No, I would say he bears the majority of the responsibility. Many of these people go on to, not many of these people, there are examples of these people some of these rappers going on to commit crimes and be parts of gangs and associated with some of the lowest. So don't take away their agency. Like, they are responsible for their actions. It doesn't absolve the executives involved. They also are responsible. Yeah. But the ultimate responsibility is the person who's putting out that message, like who's conceiving it, writing the lyrics, shooting the videos. Yeah. And so it doesn't absolve if there are Jewish, Muslim, any executives behind that who also capitalizing on that talent. Yeah. Then they also are partly responsible. But the ultimate responsibility, unless someone's holding a gun to someone's head and saying you're going to write these horrible lyrics and glorify his violence, it's on the artist.
Do you know anything about Kyrie Irving's situation? Because obviously he got kind of blackballed.
I took 5 months out, so I don't know the film he shot. Like, I stopped making videos. I've only just come back. Yeah. So I don't know enough about Kyrie Irving. What I would say, I know a lot about the Black Hebrew Israelite who he's part of. Yeah. So I can talk about them. I can't talk about the film he linked to because I don't know which film he linked to.
Okay. Yeah. So the conversation goes, because it's kind of coinciding with the whole Kanye thing. So the conversation goes that he shared a link to a documentary that was on Amazon, Capitalism here, and he was then.
You can also get Mein Kampf on Amazon. That's the insanity. Like, they want to throw like Twitter off the App Store, etc. Yet you can buy Mein Kampf on Amazon, and that's fine.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
There's no sense to any of the censorship.
I know. It's crazy. But like, so he was then being penalized, I believe, by the NBA. But then also there was someone, a figure. Again, I think he was Jewish himself, bald-headed guy, some high-shot guy who was telling him basically, you should cool down, come talk to me and whatever. And then I start seeing very horrible memes of like the bald-headed Jewish guy.
Meme.
Yeah, him sort of like, controlling Kyrie Irving. But like, what? Because obviously the documentary, from what I understand, talks about the idea that the real Jews are African American, and
not just African, Hispanics, and the indigenous Americans, and they're the real Jews, not the Jews.
And the Jews who, are known as
Jews
the Jews
that lived in Iran, and the Jews they're the fake Jews.
The fake Jews. So do you reckon? So is this a discussion that is a historical debate, or is this something that you would also classify anti-Semitic?
It's not anti-Semitic to believe you're Jewish. You're just wrong. There's nothing. If Kyrie Irving wants to believe that, and maybe he does. Maybe he descends from an Ethiopian Jew, or there are communities in Africa that are legit Jewish. Yeah. They have a tradition, which I'm not going to question, that goes back centuries and centuries and centuries.
Correct.
That they're Jewish.
Cool.
The Black Hebrew Israelites are not the same. They're people who don't. They read the Torah, the Old Testament, and they project onto, they extrapolate from that they interpret the text of the Old Testament as that they're the real Jews. There's no memory, there's no historic collective memory, there's no Hebrew in their families. Like, if you go to an Iranian Jewish graveyard in Tehran, if you go to a Jewish Polish graveyard in Poland, if you go to Moroccan Jewish graveyard, you'll find Hebrew, you'll find a tradition going back thousands of years of these communities being Jewish. The Black Hebrew Israelites don't have that. There's like a 2,000-year gap between them, what they're claiming, and like there's no evidence. There's nothing to substantiate their claim. It's just how they interpret the text. And people can interpret religious texts however they want.
How do they justify the absence of that record in their own history?
So before we go there, I think it's a very beautiful conversation. I just wanted to say, because it's kind of like the topic you were talking about, but why was he why was that like this penalizing situation going around him, and you don't know too much about this?
I can't talk about it because I don't know enough about it.
Because I think that would have been a good example.
I would say if you are saying, like, I don't know if you saw the Hebrew Israelites marching down, like literally like a militia through New York.
New York.
When you have a large group of men dressed in similar clothing, it has negative connotations usually. Like, it doesn't matter what community you're from, if it was white people marching, Jewish people marching, if it's like, and they're marching, we are the real Jews. Like, the inference is all these other Jews are not real Jews. That it's slightly problematic. I think they're completely entitled to believe that. I believe they're not real Jews. I don't think I'm being hateful to them by saying that.
Maybe
they don't think they're being hateful to you by saying you're not.
The groups themselves are deeply anti-Semitic. So there's different churches, so you can't associate them all the same. But some of them are. So for instance, I'll give you there's a lot of anti-Semitic hate crimes that come from these communities. Like, there was shooting where they went in with machine guns and shut up kosher shops.
Wow.
Like, there's not much between them and neo-Nazis. And actually, on the wake of the whole Kanye stuff, I put a video out on this. Kanye West has done one thing, and I don't want to say credit to Kanye West, but he's actually got white supremacists, neo-Nazis, the worst neo-Nazis in the world. Mark Collard, Andrew Anglin, like, these are the biggest, most vile neo-Nazis on the planet. And they're all now endorsing a black man. So to his credit, he's brought white supremacists over to the black community.
But it is also very scary to see that there is this very deep sentiment against Jewish people to this day, that with even combined enemies, you reconcile or unite enemies.
So there's a horrible picture from my perspective. Back in the 60s, the Nation of Islam holding a big talk. And at the front of the Nation of Islam, you have the American Nazi Party with the swastikas sitting in the front row. It's like neo-Nazis have historically been willing to put aside their prejudice to work with the black community.
It's like the enemy of my enemy.
Exactly. I see it's no different to Tommy Robinson. And there's a guy called James Goddard, I don't know if you know him, but he used to be a big anti-Muslim, and he'd bring me up and he'd literally beg me to do a video. And I said, no, it's not. I'm not anti-Muslim. It's not. I'm not making a video with you. And he's now a neo-Nazi. But he wanted to work with me because it's like, you're a Jewish, you must hate Muslims. No, it's and so I think people have, like, Tommy Robinson's the same. You go to Tommy Robinson's march and EDL march, you'll see Israeli flags. And now Tommy Robinson's made a video calling Kanye West a G. And saying, like, it's fantastic that he's talking about this issue. It's like, well, make up your mind, Tommy.
Maybe. But this is what I'm trying to say. So, like, with Kyrie Irving, for example, there was this, like, thing where he was penalized for sharing. So, perhaps, only perhaps, I feel like there's still more room, and there has to be people like yourself who come out and say, hey, look, let's have this conversation. Let's deconstruct all these things that are being talked about. Because I don't think that it always transpires like that in the news.
I think, as a general rule, most Jews have a good radar for detecting anti-Semitism. So when people, like both of you, come up and have a sincere conversation, can't we talk about this? No one's going to watch this and go, these guys, they want us dead. They want another Holocaust. No one's going to watch this conversation and think that that's the like what. But when we watch Kanye coming out with memes, like literal Nazi memes, that all these people that aren't Jewish are actually Jewish and they're trying to control the world. And they're responsible for the Holocaust. And so. Sorry. I am Jewish. That was the question. And
while you try and reconnect that thought, it's sad because the fact that we're having like a chilled, sincere conversation inevitably means that these videos are not going to get the views that some of the much more incendiary content gets, which is kind of sad. Like, that's the reason why this Kanye stuff has got so much traction, is because it's so offensive. But actually,
I'm just going to name my YouTube video Kanye fan.
A bit of clickbait.
Kanye Psycho. I'm like 30 minutes away, babes. So basically, I think the best thing to do is to just go there and I'll come meet you. But that's still 50 minutes from like Speaker's Corner. It's kind of far. It's not like close.
I definitely have to do my research. But that's not my one, but yeah, we can wrap it up. My one's still on you, but this is someone else's.
Yeah, but guys,
Sorry.
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Thank you.
Well done, guys.
Thank you. Nice conversation. Joseph, quick wrap of this. What happened there, Joseph?
So very quick for the cameras. So they've been watching Kanye West, and they thought there was a stigma, or they believed there was a stigma about talking about Jewish representation in different industries. They thought people would say it's anti-Semitic. They say that the Jews are disproportionately represented in Hollywood. Jews are disproportionately represented in the banks, and I just wanted to point out that that's not the case. People talk about this all the time. The issue is when you think that there's some sort of conspiracy between people from a particular ethnic group, and that's the problem. It was a very peaceful conversation, very polite conversation. No hatred from any of the people on there. So it was a very rare speaker's corner.